that you're all here tonight. So thank you for spending your evening with us. We realize that there are many things that you can be doing, so we are most grateful for you taking the time to be with us. I'm Kelly Johnson, and with me is my co-founder, Deb Kelsey Davis. We co-founded Nourish for Caregivers, and we are also caregivers ourselves. So we're excited and honored to bring you this series and for you to meet Susan Amann. We know that your time is precious, and we're grateful again that you made the choice to spend it with us. And our side of that is we will keep everything to within an hour, recognizing that you have things to do at that time. So we hope you find spiritual nourishment along the way. We will have Susan be speaking, and then we'll allow room for questions and answers near the end as well. So please, as we've kind of been coming in, we've asked people to find the chat, and that will be an opportunity for you also to use the chat to ask questions or any thoughts that you have along the way. Go ahead and pop them into that chat box so we don't miss them. But before we begin, as we always do, we'll begin with a prayer.
And our prayer tonight is one actually that Susan selected for us. And it's been adapted from the 15 Strong Prayers for Caregivers. And I would just ask if maybe everyone just takes a moment to maybe quiet yourselves and place yourselves in the Lord's presence. Take a deep breath. And let us begin. Light in the darkness. Being a caregiver is an enormous privilege. Thank you for the privilege to serve my loved one. Many times, the duties of caregiving take all I have, and I feel that I have nothing left to give. Help me to remember that you are the one who have called me to be a caregiver and have given me the gifts I need to shoulder this responsibility. Good Holy Spirit, please prompt me daily to seek all that I need from you. Help me to sift my responsibilities, my needs, and my dreams. And keep me, Lord, in perfect grace. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Deb.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as we're beginning, I'd like to introduce you to Susan. Susan Amann has been the Director of Spiritual Ministry for the Servants of the Holy Heart of Mary since July of 2019. So she's had an exciting beginning as we've been going through the COVID period. She's worked for the Archdiocese of Chicago, where she held the position of Associate Director of the Office of Lifelong Formation. Susan earned her degree in Justice Ministry from Catholic Theological Union in May of 2014, and has published and delivered papers on the inclusion of persons with disabilities in the life of the church. Thank you for that, Susan. Susan has been married to her husband, Steve, for over 32 years, and they have 5 children. Susan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kelly. Thank you, Deb, for welcoming me, for asking me to speak to caregivers about spirituality and caregiving. It is a grace and a privilege for me to be here with all of you this evening. Caregiving has been a defining part of my adult life. I became a mother when I was 25, a vocation that forms the foundation of my identity as a caregiver and my caregiving journey. I have 3 distinct caregiving seasons that I'd like to share with you tonight. The first beginning with the birth of my 5th child, Grace. Gracie's preschool days revealed the beginnings of her struggles with transitioning between the activities of her mornings at preschool. The teachers were skilled enough to manage, working with me to help Grace to continue to participate. Her kindergarten year, though, saw the end to that success. And by the time Grace entered the 1st grade, she'd been diagnosed with pervasive developmental disorder, a flavor of autism. Her school experience had begun with challenges and continued through the years ahead. I spent a great deal of time and energy in those first years learning about her diagnosis and how to be her advocate with teachers, therapists, and the school administration folks. Often she was frustrated, and I was frustrated. Grace just turned 18, and my husband and I have made many difficult and unconventional decisions to help Grace cope with the challenging world of typical norms and expectations. We've had to relearn how to parent and remap what the future looks like for our family. There are many aspects of typical family life that have been sifted away as we've chosen Grace over extended family gatherings, large and noisy social situations, entertaining people in our home, and possibly ever having an empty nest. The second caregiving season that I would like to share with you is when I helped my mom care for my dad during his fight with lung cancer. I was blessed with having the time to be there in their home when Dad was in hospice. I spent 2 to 3 days a week with them, staying overnight, watching cop shows with Dad, making grilled cheese sandwiches when nothing else tasted good to him, and talking about faith. I sifted away some of my professional responsibilities, as well as a lot of time spent at home with my husband and my kids. After Dad was gone, the time and responsibilities returned to normal somewhat, but the impact of the sifting left scars that took quite some time to heal. Finally, I'm currently in the caregiving season with my mom. Her health is declining, and yet she still lives alone in my parents' home. I've stepped into the role of caregiver coordinator, organizing her health care needs, her finances, and scheduling 24/7 care in home that fluctuates from week to week. I have sifted away many things in this season, probably more than any other season before, but with more attention and more intention this time. I've sifted away my monthly poker game with my girlfriends, reading mystery novels, making jewelry, and my big vegetable garden. Only time will tell which of those sifted activities will be reclaimed. At this point, I want to share that I feel each of these seasons were a call from God to serve my family with care. Each time I heard that call, Mary, the mother of the church, the mother of Jesus, helped me say yes, as she did. I believe that accepting the role as caregiver for me is saying yes to God. Each time God asked, I said yes. I'm a list maker, as you can see. I realize that not everyone is, but creating this musts, shoulds, wants, and wishes list can be a good exercise when maintaining the many demands of caregiving. In some ways, this can be seen as a prioritization of the tasks of caregiving. The musts are those things that are basic needs, unavoidable, always on the list every day. The shoulds are those things that need to be done regularly, but there's a little wiggle room. For example, we must eat versus I should pay a bill, but maybe I can do it tomorrow. The wants are those things I really want to do as soon as I get the shoulds done. I get to them sometimes, but not often. The wishes are those things that I can't seem to find any time to do. The more time I'm able to find to do the wants, the more impossible any of the wishes seem to become. Right now, I need to be very clear. This is my musts and shoulds, wants, and wishes list. The things on this list are unique to me and should not inform at all what your list would look like. While you may agree with some or maybe all of my musts, as you move into the shoulds, the wants, and the wishes, our lists will diverge greatly. So I'd like to stop for a few minutes and have you pull a piece of paper and a pen. Or if, I don't know if Deb or Kelly sent you the handout that I made, but I have a handout I can send you if they did not. And try to write down a couple of things under each one of these titles. I just like it take a couple seconds. We'll be quiet. Write down a couple musts for you, a couple shoulds in your caregiving season, things that you would want to do and things you wish you could do. Let's just take about a minute or a minute and a half to write those down. So hopefully you had a little time to write down one or two things, maybe three things under each one of the topics, each one of the titles. So why make a list like this? With few exceptions, all caregivers do sift during their caregiving season. Caregiving takes time. So we do not have time to do all the things we were doing before we entered this caregiving season. When we sift during our caregiving season, we need to be intentional about how we use our time. The musts, shoulds, wants, and wishes list can help. For instance, for some caregivers, taking care of the bills and the financial decisions might not be their gift, might not be something they're comfortable doing. So by virtue of this difficulty or this discomfort, they might sift that responsibility away unintentionally. But we'll talk a little bit more about intentionality in a bit. In her wonderful book, Dear Heart, Come Home, author Joyce Roop writes about her spiritual journey. I see caregiving as a flavor of the spiritual journey that Roop describes. During the journey, Roop describes the experience of sorting time, thinking about time, experience, and relationships, and how they have to be sorted, deciding what to keep right now and what must be set aside permanently or for a time. Upon reading this in her book, I envisioned sifting through sand to find seashells, an activity I had done many times with my children at the beach. We wanted to take home the valued shells and leave behind the undesirable, messy sand. The sand was fun at the beach to make sandcastles, but we did not want to take it home. At times, I felt that everything has been sifted away. Maybe you feel that way. There's so many things that I love to do, so many self-care things I want to be doing. I made a list of those things to show you here. And I began to realize how many of them have been sifted away. So these are my lists, my activities I love to do, and the self-care things I'd like to be doing for myself. Early in my caregiving season with Gracie, sewing and gardening in the gardening ministry at my parish got sifted away. Journaling and bicycle rides got sifted away. Mystery novels and consistent healthy eating got sifted away. During my caregiving with my dad, dates with my husband got sifted away, and jewelry making. Long phone calls with my oldest friend and playing poker with my girlfriends got sifted away. And now, during this current caregiving season with my mom, some of my own gardening and my Christmas decorating, something I just really have always loved, has been sifted away. Baking and walks in the woods have been sifted away. What's left? I can see there are a few things if you look at my list. Is it enough? Are they the right things? Let's step back a minute and look at the kinds of things we tend to sift away during our caregiving season. We sift away chores at home. The windows don't get washed. Laundry piles up. The Christmas tree is still up on Easter. Hobbies and fun get sifted away. Our pandemic experience is governing some of these things right now, but going out to dinner or a movie can get sifted away. Doing the Sunday crossword puzzle can get sifted away, or taking a walk in the woods. People in our relationships can get sifted. Catching up with our friends or our grown children can be greatly minimized. Quiet time with our spouse or significant other. Sometimes the time in our intimate relationships, is too quiet. We have used our energy and focus on the time we spent with the person with whom we're giving care, and we have none left for our relationships. Our professional responsibilities get sifted. Our work obligations slide, or sometimes some of us have known the reality that we have to leave our job altogether. Self-care gets sifted. Fast food dinners can become too often. Our exercise routines can be lapsed. Vacation time gets sifted. Then it's not spent to rest, but also often spent with caregivers and caregiving activities where we're trying to catch up. And also our prayer, our worship, our relationship with God gets sifted. It's possible that there's no opportunity to attend worship services during our caregiving season, or we feel an estrangement from God. You just don't know what to say, and so we sift our prayer time. Will the things I sift away be gone forever? There's three possibilities actually for this reality. Some are gone for a season. So in my experience with the caregiving season with my dad, I found I had sifted away my connection with my old friend, with the long conversations we would have because Sheila and I lived in different cities. But that came right back when I lost my dad. In fact, my dear friend was a great support in that time of grief. Some of the things we sift away will never be back. I gave up my jewelry making to focus on one of the things that I love that I was able to not sift away, crochet. I focused my creative passions on my crochet, and it was an easy choice. My niece has taken up the interest in jewelry making. So I was able to give all of that accumulated stuff to her, and she was delighted. And I intentionally chose to crochet, which I love, and it's much more portable. I can integrate it much more easily in my current caregiving season. Some may return when I've moved into another season of my life. I still have my bike and my hiking boots. Their use will return with intentional decisions and more time in another season. Sifting should be intentional. Using your musts, shoulds, wants, and wishes list to take control. You do this by choosing what gets sifted. Don't necessarily sift away all the wishes in favor of the shoulds or the wants. If you are that person who dreads the bills and the banking, delegate that away as a way of sifting what's on your to-do list. I know that I could delegate meal prep a few times a week to my husband or my adult children in favor of carving out one quiet day to myself now and again that's on my wishes list. The power of intentional sifting is that it helps to avoid the feeling that you've lost something and it's out of your control. I've lost the things that I love to do or the self-care things that I need to do. That these changes are being done to me instead of me making the choices. During my caregiving season with my dad, I did not feel like I had a choice but to sacrifice my date night with my husband, Steve, because the laundry and the sleep seemed to be more important, immediate priorities. I could have delegated the laundry, but I couldn't see that then. And remember that you'll only be hitting the pause button for many things during the season. So here are some don'ts, or try to avoid throwing away your gardening tools. If you love your gardening hobby as much as I love it, if it's been a joy in the past, chances are you'll pick up your gardening tools again in a season where you have more time. Don't sell your exercise equipment. I love my bike and I love bicycling. Hanging up my bike in the garage made me sad. But since it's an activity my whole family enjoys, it will be one I go back to. Don't stop communicating with your friends and family altogether. This is a really big one. My 90-minute phone conversations may not be possible with my girlfriend, but sending an email or a text is. I can drop a note while writing out the bills or sitting in a waiting room. A little bit of preparation by gathering note paper, birthday cards, and stamps in my to-go bag, or delegating that chore can help stay connected with loved ones and friends. Don't obsess over the crumbs in the couch cushions. This is a hard one for me. I love a clean house, and my house is clean. But the dust bunnies under the bed and the disorganized sock drawers are just going to have to wait. We all must find a few things in our life to let go of at time. That's what sifting is all about. It won't be forever. Chances are you're the only one who may notice the things you sift away on this part of the list. Or maybe you'll be blessed with holy blindness and not even see the dust accumulating on the blades of your ceiling fan. That did happen to me in one of my caregiving seasons. When that season was over, I couldn't wait to clean my house from the top to the bottom. Well, finally, don't feel guilty over store-bought cupcakes for your child's birthday. Sometimes we have traditions that come to feel like impossible expectations during our caregiving season. For me, this tradition was Christmas decorating. I love to decorate for Christmas. I decorate from the top of my house to the bottom of my house. There's so many boxes in my crawl space that there's no room for anything else. But this past year, I put up a Christmas tree and put a wreath on the door and little else. I couldn't face putting it all away after Christmas, and that caused me to sift. I'd like to step back and talk a little bit about how we are and how we can be healthy human persons during our caregiving season. There's 5 key ways that we grow: physically, intellectually, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. We must care for each part as we care for other people. So we have to do that self-care. It's essential. Growth is an essential part of our self-care. And right now, I want to focus on spiritual growth. Michelle Van Loon presents the stages of spiritual growth in her wonderful book, Becoming Sage. Early in our spiritual development, we pass through 2 stages. The first one, God, I believe in you. And the second, God, I belong to you. These are the times when we get acquainted with God and with our faith community. Then, as a young adult, we enter into the stage, God, I'm working for you. As we embrace the call to our vocation, and we start to build a faithful life. At some point, and sometimes this happens for those of us who are in our caregiving season, or when we are in our caregiving season, we enter into the stage of spiritual growth that is less certain, loaded with questions, with transitions, loss, and often loneliness. At times, it can feel like, God, where are you? I'm alone in the dark. This is the time when we find ourselves sifting, putting down those things that are less important for the pressing and real demands of caregiving. There's a spirituality to our sifting during this caregiving season. Sifting, when done intentionally, is an act of self-care. Sifting can be a moment of spiritual growth. We can see God's work in us and in the one we love. When we say sifting happens in a time of crisis, and I'm not really referring to great loss, or those lump in the throat experiences of hearing a dread diagnosis or during an ambulance ride to the hospital. The time of crisis is when we may realize that we can't hold on to the past, the life we had before, or for that matter, we shouldn't hold on. My life must change. Aspects shifted away for me as a caregiver to be able to go forward. There is much talk about the pandemic and living in the new normal. As caregivers who have sifted, we know the reality of living in a new normal. That's nothing new for us. A key aspect of doing this well is allowing God to get our attention during this time. God wants us to see ourselves as God sees us. This is our authentic self. Our self as God sees us. God wants to help us sift away those things that are not really helping us, not adding, not helping us be the best version of ourselves, to quote Matthew Kelly. In a beautiful book that I've just found, The Spirituality of Caregiving by Henry Nouwen, is a tiny book. It's so full of wisdom about caregiving that I would love to read the whole thing to you. But in the first few paragraphs, Henry Nouwen captures more eloquently what I'm trying to say about the spirituality of sifting. So I'm going to read you a couple of paragraphs. Henry Nouwen starts, "What is care? The word finds its origin in the word kara, which means to lament, to mourn, to participate in suffering, to share in pain. To care is to cry out with those who are ill, confused, lonely, isolated and forgotten, to recognize their pains in our own heart. To care is to enter into the world of those who are broken and powerless, and to establish there a fellowship of the weak. To care is to be present to those who suffer and to stay present, even when nothing can be done to change their situation. To care is the most human of all human gestures." Again, to care is the most human of all human gestures. It's a gesture that comes forth from a courageous confession of our common need for one another and the grace of a compassion that binds us together with brothers and sisters like ourselves, who share with us the wonderful and painful journey of life. In the very act of caring for another, you and I possess a great treasure. One of the greatest riches of caregiving is that it embraces something more than simply a focus on care. Caregiving carries within it an opportunity for inner healing, liberation, and transformation for the one being cared for and the one who cares. And because we who offer care and we who receive care are both strong and vulnerable, though in different ways, our coming together as a caregiving relationship is an occasion to open ourselves to receive an unexpected gift. And this is what I'm talking about in this final thought about spirituality of sifting. God is trying to get our attention. God is trying to help us see ourselves as God sees us, who we really are, the core of ourself, the foundation of who we are. And so I like to say, we are caregivers, all of us. To care is to love. To love is to serve. To be a caregiver is to have a servant heart. I would like to offer to you the opportunity to grow spiritually and self-care by joining me in some spiritual programming offered by the Servants of the Holy Heart of Mary. You can find a listing of our programs on the Servants of the Holy Heart of Mary website, www.sscm-usa.org. On our homepage, you can sign up to receive information about our programs each month. Feel free to reach out to me. My email is there on the screen to share comments on what I've shared this evening or ask questions about the future spiritual ministry programs often offered by the Servants of the Holy Heart of Mary. Thank you for allowing me to spend this time with you. And I guess we're going to open up to questions.
We are, and thank you so much, Susan. And I wanted to just point out, while we're making that transition, we'll stop sharing our screen here. You mentioned the worksheet that you have, and we will be making that available to everyone after
Okay.
the session.
And if I typed correctly, I think I put the put the address into the chat box, but I may have typed it wrong because it's not clicking easily, but I'll try to find it, add it in there.
So please, if you have any thoughts, perhaps a question for Susan on sifting, maybe even some of your own sort of successes you've had or realizations you've had throughout your own season of caregiving and sifting. Susan, I'd like to share, it really touched my heart when you were talking about, really looking at things as yes, some things may be gone that we sift forever, but we do pick up other things. And there are other things that can come back to us that we don't necessarily have to totally say goodbye to. I think that's really important to recognize. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. I'm going to share a little story. I didn't include this in my talk, but it was an experience I had. I've always been crafty. My mom is crafty. I don't know. I was a Girl Scout. I always was crafting. And as a young mom and a young wife, I accumulated so many things. I had so many popsicle sticks. You wouldn't believe it. And I used to sew. So I had boxes and boxes of fabric and so many patterns and yarn and yarn and yarn. And so my husband, looking at this accumulating pile, made me these wooden shelves in the basement. And so I continued to pack things on there. We made crafts with the kids. I did all kinds of different things. And then one day I just couldn't stand the sight of it. I just couldn't look at it anymore. And all of a sudden, all those treasures just looked like junk to me. And it was just like a switch flipped, but I didn't need all those things anymore. Mm-hmm. And some of the things were still, I probably got rid of half of the volume of everything in one go. But as I went on, the things got sifted more things became obvious treasures, other things I could let go of. And I didn't know it at the time I did it. But once I started thinking about the sifting, I thought that is what I was doing with all that stuff. It's exactly the same. I don't need those things anymore, and when I want to sew something in the future when I have time and I'm not making that sewing machine noise that bothers Grace, I can go out and buy the fabric for a pattern and make something. It's not gone forever. I didn't sell the machine. I still have the sewing machine. I just got rid of a lot of the leftover stuff. So that really was an eye-opening experience that I pulled into the present from the past, So things aren't gone forever that you really love to do. And that's another thing I didn't ask everybody to do, but make that list of things you love to do, even though it's not in the present. So you can see the things that you've given up that maybe it was not the right trade-off in the time. And maybe you want to trade it for something else and sift again and bring something back. I've started and stopped crocheting so many times since I was 12. And right now it's a very good way for me to be creative, and it's very portable. So it works really well during this season.
I liked that too. I'm also a list person, so any versions of lists, I'm all over that. But I think it's so important, some of the things in doing that exercise, you begin to see what we need to be deliberate about and what we need to be intentional about and where our priorities need to be, because that's a part of who we are. And as you went on to talk about the spirituality of that, understanding that those are some of the pieces and the ways in which that God made us is such an important part of that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a reminder to delegate. I'm terrible at delegating. Mm-hmm. And so remembering that I can ask somebody else to make dinner, that list reminds me that I can do that. And that it is important to do the things that I wish to do as well for self-care purposes. That's what God has that in my heart, that I need that quiet time with him or quiet time by myself. And so I need to look at that list and see what things I can delegate.
Exactly. Sorry,
And
a
I think
couple of questions and comments had come into the chat, so I want to one said, Heather said, thank you so much, truly grateful and a tremendous blessing to make it this evening, so thank you. And then someone had asked, Gloria had asked me, I have the title and the author of the book Susan had read from, and that was that A Spirituality of Caregiving by Henry Nouwen. So I put that in the chat as well. So you're
And
welcome.
not every time you find a great book is it readily available, but this one
that's
is.
true.
This is what it looks like. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can find it everywhere. So on Amazon and all different places. So this is a book, and it's a little tiny book. You can read it in an afternoon.
Yeah, and then you're going to want to go back and back and back and back again and again. So it is a great book.
Yeah. Henry Nouwen had a caring season when he lived at the Larch community.
Mm-hmm.
And so he shares out of his own experience as well as his spirituality in that book. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love the question that just came in from Susan. What to do if caregiving does not come naturally?
You know, I think everybody has that experience, to tell you the truth, Susan, that if some part of it doesn't feel natural, what I shared about somebody who has the responsibility to write out the bills or take care of the bills for the person that they're caring for, it's not natural. You need to try to gather people around you that can help you with those things. Another thing that I would say is concentrate on concentrate on your relationship with the person. Really remember who the person is, why you chose to be the caregiver, why you are the caregiver, and what that relationship is. The compassion, the respect for that person that you have will help to lift you up into the responsibilities.
Mm-hmm. And I think you say it so well, Susan. And to Susan, who brought this question up, I think a lot of people have this question. And I also think that we who are caregivers look at caregiving as a whole. And there's a lot to it, right? It can be overwhelming, just thinking about caregiving. And I think that to your wisdom, Susan, of looking at creating sort of these little boxes, the musts, kind of going through that, and even looking at all the aspects of your caregiving as you're looking at delegating. But maybe there's pieces of caregiving that you never really thought of as caregiving before, like cooking, or maybe it's, just sitting and being with your loved one. Maybe it is, making a phone call, whatever the case might be. You might find that there's an aspect of caregiving that is something, it's a gift that comes naturally from you. And then the things that are a struggle, well, I know for me, God has challenged me through some of those struggles, and I've learned about myself through that. And then I've also learned, as you said, Susan, I need to ask someone else to help because I simply can't. It just doesn't work for me.
Oftentimes when we look at that list, we should look at the list and find out what things are not on there, because those are the things that are easy for us.
Right.
Like, just like you said, they're the things that we're not counting as caregiving, and I think that an overlooked caregiving job or caregiving task is inviting other people into the caregiving. If you have, sometimes we discount people that we think, oh, they shouldn't have any responsibility for this. And one of my sisters is beating this drum all the time in our situation is grandchildren. Because my mom doesn't think of it. I tend not to think of it as, and when mom wants the weeds pulled, that's a great grandchild job. It doesn't have to be me who gets down and because it's bothering mom. We can invite, grandkids, or even the guy next door who loves to garden. He probably would love to come over and help in that way. And so there are people in the circle that you don't think of or waiting to be asked. to do those things that may feel like they're too hard or not in your wheelhouse, or you just don't have time to do.
And as I'm looking at you, Susan, and all of the imagery behind you, the many faces, it reminds me that, maybe even if you're uncomfortable delegating, there's groups that you can be a part of. All those people that you can surround yourself with, that you can ask a question like, have you guys ever encountered this before? And, get some wisdom from others. Sometimes that's what it takes. And when I saw all those images surrounding you, Susan, it made me think of, let's not forget, just like Jesus had the 12 disciples as his support group.
Mm-hmm.
We too need people we can go to and just say, I don't know.
So important how much we can learn and share with other caregivers, and how much just other people who are going through the journey. It's no two journeys are the same, but a similar journey, and understand that compassion and knowing that someone else is walking along with. Gloria put a comment into the chat that I just wanted to share. She said, I've learned to shift my self-care time to when my mom is resting or sleeping. I'm a night owl, so this worked well. Quiet time with God is perfect when there's no phone ringing or doorbells. And I just recently also have kind of needed to adapt that a little bit too, in terms of when the boys were very, very young. I remember someone saying, take a nap when they take a nap, when you have the brand new newborn. And that's sort of been a little bit what I've had to kind of reintroduce as our caregiving has shifted and sifted a little bit, with my son graduating from college and now coming to live back home and figuring out what his needs are with his learning disabilities and things like that. Just finding that downtime when he's taking downtime. So I thank you, Gloria, for sharing that thought and tip in there. Resonated with me, certainly.
Debbie's put a message in here to everyone just to say thank you. I have to go get my son to bed now. So there's an important, sifting. I got what I needed, and now I need to move on to the next thing. But she said, I really enjoyed your informative talk.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Debbie. Thank you.
Susan, have you ever seen where maybe you've made that intentional decision to sift something, to put it on the shelf or to tuck it away, or to let it go? Have you seen it pop up in other forms, perhaps? Maybe not exactly the same. Have you ever encountered that happening, returning to it in a different way?
Certainly, if I talk about prayer life, and I'm not sure if this is just apples and apples, but when I was a young mom, and I so felt the crunch of not having time to pray. I felt like I had no time alone in my head ever. And I started reading things about Amish spirituality and how everything you do can be an intentional prayer with God. And so wiping the table the best you can, doing the dishes as best you can, changing a diaper as best you can. It got me through a season where I felt like I didn't have enough prayer time. And when I moved into my years in graduate school, I learned a lot of different kinds of prayer and theological reflection and different kinds of meditation. And but I'm back now with the feeling that I don't have time to pray. And it's different though. Now I'm so much more, I've kind of amassed a lot more worship music and spiritual music. And so I listen to that when I'm doing something else, as a way to get into God's presence without having the time to really totally sit down and focus. I don't have time to sit in a chair for 30 minutes and focus on just being quiet with God. So when I'm driving, I'm worshiping. So I don't know if that's apples and apples with what you're saying, but it's taking a skill I learned before and just kind of changing it a little bit into my connection with God in a way that I can. I know that you shared something that you've done.
I have, and I think we've all had these experiences. Why I was curious, Susan, as you experienced it. So I had to shelf my artwork. I used to love to paint, and I had to, and it's still tucked away because I'm caring now for both my mom and dad. Sometimes I feel very sad over the fact that I can't make the time because I need that creative outlet. I know that I need that. And then I started realizing, it kind of hit me one day, that when I cook, my husband makes fun of me because I actually decorate the plates. I like to arrange the food in a particular way to make it look kind of fun or whatever. And I realized maybe that's my artwork coming out, but in a different way with the task that I have to do. It's a must. We have to eat. I need to cook. So, it is interesting how some of the things that we do need to put away because of a decision we need to make on where we're going to spend our time. We can't do everything. How it can come out in other ways.
It's very, very true. It's very true. I think the need for creativity is one of those things that we can take that need in ourselves to express and change the channel a little bit, but still get that self-care and feeding your soul that you need.
Yeah.
Gloria put into the chat, she said, this session is one of my favorites. So many of the aspects really hit home with me, especially the spirituality part. So thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. That's very kind. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think so too. I think so many of the ways, Susan, in which you talked about spirituality and recognizing, just really kind of continuing on what you were just saying, is that spirituality doesn't have to be like, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to open up my Bible and no one's going to interrupt me. And this is, my prayer time. Life doesn't work that way, especially during this season.
No, it doesn't. And Kelly, we tend to have a formula for prayer.
Right.
I have to say so many of these prayers. I have to spend so much time, or I have to read so many verses or so many pages, or I have to go to work, this worship or that prayer. When we make those formulas in our head and sifting those to what actually works in our life now doesn't mean you'll never go back.
Absolutely.
I was saying to my spiritual director today, I had a session that blessed me very much. And I said, as a Catholic, I love the Eucharist, but I've come to realize that sometimes the liturgy of the word is what really feeds me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And now we have an opportunity to go to Mass anywhere, on the internet. I'll just tune in for the reading and the homily sometimes. Not that that's replacing necessarily my Sunday Mass, but I can't watch a whole Mass every day.
Right.
I don't have that time, but I can listen to while I'm driving or while I'm doing something else, while I'm folding laundry, the readings for the day and a homily.
Yeah.
So we have to try to let go of those formulas that we think this is the way it is to be a faithful person with all these different practices, and try to let go of those and just hold on to the ones that really feed you right now in this season.
So important. Thank you, Susan. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Susan. And I'm going to share the screen as we move into kind of closing, because I see we're nearing the top of the hour. But what we'll do, I just want to make sure everyone's aware, we record these sessions. It will be available, and we will place that on our Caregiving Wisdom series webpage, where we have the videos. But also we'll look to send out a communication again with the link to the worksheets that Susan has provided. And again, I wanted to put this up here one more time so you know how to reach Susan, how to find her, and her workshops and retreats that are offered.
And the website for the Servants of the Holy Heart of Mary the website is in the chat, so you can click on that and be able to come back, or you can save the chat so you can see that.
And I put my email in the chat as well, so people can reach out if they want to talk about this sifting and some spirituality of caregiving, or if you have questions about our programs coming up. We have a wonderful Advent retreat coming up.
Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you for being here with us and making us all feel good about sifting. Right?
Thank you for inviting me. It was a great pleasure and a grace to be with you guys tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And as we're looking ahead to September already, we're looking at two topics. We're looking at September 1st, welcoming Dr. Rosemary Laird, who'll be talking about caring for the caregiver, about what it really means to take your oxygen first and how to do that. And then September 15th, we're going to be welcoming Ann Krazan, who will be talking about spiritual self-care. And we all know that, this theme that we're talking about, especially as the pandemic continues on. Susan's speaking to us tonight about the spiritual aspects of sifting and caregiving. We're going to continue that theme as we're moving forward into September. Now, we also want to make sure that you're aware of a number of our resources. And I saw in the chat, and I know, Joanne, you had asked a question about some of our meetings that we have in the mornings. This may or may not answer your question directly, but if you'll notice up here, we are still doing house calls. Last year, when the pandemic first really hit, we were doing them every day. Now we are doing them on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, and we're soon to be we're looking to offer an evening, and we'll be getting all that information out to you, but that's where you can come together with other caregivers. It's scripturally and faith-based, but a lot of time to share too. And then last but not least, if you're looking for another good book on caregiving, there's The Caregiver's Companion, a Christ-centered journal to nourish your soul that Kelly and I were blessed to work with Ave Maria Press to author. So thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. We're so blessed to have you. And we hope you come back in 2 weeks on, 2 weeks, September 1st. So thank you. And again, Susan, thank you so very much.
You're very welcome. God bless you.
God bless. Thank you.
God bless all of you.
Yeah. Have a blessed week, everyone.
Take care. Stay warm. Stay cool. Wherever you're at, and stay well.
Exactly.
All right. Good night, everybody.